The best use case story is Adobe. They've been around for a very long time, and they have a very big code base. And they told us none of the tools are able to understand how big and complex our code base is when we need to make a change that touches on multiple surface areas inside the code base.
We have Jack Tomasik, who is from Augment Code. We're glad to have you here with us today. So do you want to tell us a little bit about Augment Code, how it started, where you're at right now? Like, you've clearly had a lot of growth recently from what I've seen.
Yes, definitely. I'd love to tell you a little bit about our background story and key differentiators. So,
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, getting started, we spent about 2 years in stealth. It was 2022 to 2024. We were working on a pretty unique question. As people were rushing to use LLMs to answer questions, we were thinking, how do we get code generation? How do you help an LLM understand your code base?
Yeah.
And the key to that is context. The context is the trickiest part because when you have a huge code base, you have a monolith or a monorepo, the agent and the LLM has to relearn everything over and over again and kind of search through haphazardly and hope it finds the right thing and doesn't burn too many tokens.
Yeah, because context, especially with any kind of enterprise monolithic repo, I mean, it's so massive. If anything, it was too big for a lot of these context windows for a while there.
Exactly. So we really focus on tackling that, and we can ingest about 1 million files of code, and our context engine is our key differentiator, where we use RAG. It's a whole bunch of little secret sauce under the hood, but it generates the proper context for all your future requests to whatever LLM model you're using under the hood.
Wow. So where was the pivot point to decide that this is what y'all were going to go after? How did y'all decide, yes, we're going to take on these large context windows in particular?
Oh, totally. Well, we started off as developing our own models, and then we kind of realized that was a little bit of a fool's errand competing with the gargantuan giants in the field. So
frontier models are definitely moving fast.
Exactly. So we said, we'll let them play that game of going back and forth, releasing a new model every couple of months, and we'll focus on how to just improve any model that's being used by giving it the context, by helping it index your code base, understand things, and continue to grow and learn to help the agents get better outcomes and much less token burn from the big models.
Nice. What do you think enterprises, need to understand in terms of what they're building and how they use these types of tools? Is there anything in particular that you think that they might be not fully getting, or you're starting to see them adopting, that you think more of them need to know about?
Oh, totally, 100%. So a lot of the workflows have really been single engineer, single agent, working on tickets. And what we see from our customers and people on the front lines of leveraging AI and agents is the next wave is going to be multi-agent orchestration.
Okay.
And with the multi-agent orchestration, what people haven't realized is how much context and data is going to be getting generated when you have long-running workflows, agents doing complex tasks, working 24/7 in the background on the cloud. And that's where the context engine is really going to shine, both with bigger code bases growing faster, as well as much more user history, user input, unique architecture decisions, and all that stuff is just going to add up and pile up. And that's where the context engine is really going to shine and help get better output and reduce token burn.
So when you talk about this multi-agent, so you've got like sub-agent situation where they'll work in parallel or teams of agents that are basically breaking down and working in isolation and able to bring stuff back and consolidate.
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
Like currently we have intent where you have a coordinator agent, you get to chat back and forth, specify what you want it to do, and then we'll spin up the sub-agents. We come with some out of the box, you can customize them further, as I'm sure a lot of other providers have, but giving the agents the context engine and the context window really helps expand on how much they can do and how well the output is.
Are there any tips or tricks you have for developers in particular around ways in which they can minimize their token usage, or make that more efficient with coding based on what you've been seeing?
Totally. That's a really good question. We've definitely seen a lot of customers we talk to are trying to build exactly what we have. They're trying to build really complex .md files they have to maintain and use different tools and skills and MCPs with their agents. And it kind of spreads out, goes all over the place. They want to have a way to really institutionalize best practices. Okay. And Augment really, unfortunately, is the best way to do that. Using our context engine is going to just handle a lot of the tricky, nitty-gritty details and let you focus on the most important thing, which is getting value to your customers, pushing better product, iterating faster, and improving your end result.
What surprised you in the way things have been changing in the last year around AI in particular?
Honestly, just the speed. It's been breakneck pace, nonstop expansion, competition, which has been really cool to see. And just the way that we're seeing both like costs go down, output improve, and it's continuing to go on a really solid path. And we're seeing such great results from our customers and people we talk to in the industry that are going from both one agent to multi-agents because it's just exponentially more output. But that does lead to other bottlenecks as well when you're outputting that much code. So
yeah, it really can. I'm curious what your thoughts are because I know developers will sometimes use tools like Claude they'll use Claude Code or Codex and they'll use it in their terminal, but they might also alternate between an IDE or the terminal. So do you see that continuing? Like, what are your thoughts around how the tools that they're using, why they might use multiple, why they might switch around, how these types of tools plug into what you provide?
Yeah, 100%. That's a really good question. So obviously, it's all about meeting engineers where they're at right now.
Right.
But at Augment, we're really visualizing a future beyond the IDE where you really are interfacing with natural language, with your coordinator, orchestrator, agent. And you can always peel back the layers and dig into the code when you need to. Like, you're never not going to need to double check things where you're looking at exact code differences.
Yeah.
But you can really start moving to a much higher level where everyone feels more like a PM in the way that you have your engineering team of agents under you. And that requires you moving from an IDE where you have the terminal and a single agent, or maybe you're trying to split the terminal to use multiple agents. We've seen people try to do that themselves, and you can go pretty far, but to really get to that next level is moving away from the IDE, obviously still needing to double check things, but our product intent is our kind of preview into what that looks like. And then we have another product coming out as well, which is Cloud Agent Orchestration, which is going to be continuing to move up the chain of abstraction with how you're going to interact with agents and code.
So is that something where you're going to be more of like allowing it to kind of run in auto mode and allowing it to just sort of run and provide an adversarial agent of sorts that can analyze and do testing and along those lines be able to allow the developer not to have to do as much in the longer term of the development?
Yes, exactly. That's what it's all about. We're going to make sure that there's still the breakpoints where there's going to be a human involved, making sure everything works and nothing's gone off the rails, but really trying to get as much busy work of both generating code as well as the code review, the test generation, and that last like kind of final third that's always tricky of, okay, how do we get this code that looks good into production, working for customers, getting the feedback. And in that way, we're seeing lots of major improvements in terms of how we're able to automate that and abstract away those layers.
So when you have long-running workflows like that, how do you make sure that they sustain and they don't fall over?
Exactly. So that's been a really tricky tackle that we've been working on. And with our newest product that's coming out soon, Cosmos, is we've been dogfeeding it internally and really stress testing it as much as possible to make sure that the agents are staying on track. And that's where our context engine comes into play because that helps reduce how much context window is getting taken up by the tasks, as well as using a bunch of other stuff. I think it's our virtual file system to help the agents learn and improve over time as they're running continually because they're on the cloud, up 24/7, doing triage for incidents, being able to generate the reports, as well as integrating into Slack or text messages or wherever else they can interface with the human to say, oh, hey, just noticed this. I'm searching the code base for what PR could have caused this bug. Does this look good? Okay, cool. Here's the change. Let's push it and fix it.
Right. So are you using Temporal for Cosmos?
That's a good question. I need to double check with the engineers. I believe we are having some type of job queuing service, but we honestly, if we are not, should be using Temporal.
Why would you say that?
Because it's an industry leader and it's incredibly strong. I got to work in Retool previous to this, and they used Temporal for our workflow queuing system, and they really enjoyed it.
Do you find that the agents tend to be a little bit chaotic or basically, they don't necessarily have a set pattern, right? So you want to put some type of guardrails around them?
Yes, exactly. So that's a whole nother debate of like what level of determinism you want with your agents, where when you don't want a lot of determinism, it looks a lot like you're just writing code where it's like input A gets B or C as the output. And you want to have the determinism at the level of creating novel solutions to problems, as well as the determinism at the level of deciding between multiple ways of solving a problem, kind of more at the end. I guess that sounds like also at the beginning, but
clearly when you're building these large, like you're solving for a large problem, right? You're dealing with large contexts that are coming in. You're dealing with these monolithic repos. So there's long-running processes. There's long-running workflows that are playing out. I assume you're probably trying to build some level of durability, especially if you've got agents and that are working on long-running harnesses. That you need some kind of durability. So in case anything breaks in that system, or if you want that human-in-the-loop interaction, you need something that'll help allow it to come back up or function more smoothly, as if nothing went wrong, even though we know agents can break stuff all the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's very similar, like how Kubernetes has kind of like the self-healing principles. We're able to really pull in the top-level agent can say, oh, this agent isn't working, it's timed out, it has some error message, let me kill that run and start over from scratch. But what we're seeing is a greatly reduced frequency and how often that the agent kind of goes off the tracks and loses the context because our context engine is providing much better input and helping keep the context window smaller. As currently, if you're using Claude Code or a lot of the big models, the context window grows, it gets compressed. It grows, it gets compressed. And every time it's getting compressed, it's losing fidelity. And that can be very important details either about the code or about the user instructions. So with our context engine, we're able to much better both keep track of the user session history, agent run history, use that data with the context engine to then train the agents to do better and to not have to start over from scratch and to have significantly better outputs and less cases where things are breaking and falling apart as you run in all directions making code.
Do you have any thoughts about where you think all this is going with AI, especially in relation to Augment Code, like how that's, well, you already were sharing before about how you see this all sort of moving up to another layer. It's going to become more agentic in terms of its higher level harness. But beyond that, do you have any thoughts around like where this is going to go and how the development cycle is going to evolve?
Interesting. That is a good question. I feel like AI can go to so many different places, and it's so interesting and like such an exciting time to be involved and really on the cutting edge. I feel like, as you mentioned, getting the higher layer of abstraction is going to lead to natural language to output. More people are going to be empowered to write code, to build their own bespoke apps, to build flows that are in not just coding spaces, but all types of other white-collar industries and spaces to help automate away the busy work, to have bespoke solutions built by agents based on what they specify, where they don't need to know much about which coding language you're using or what database you're using, but as long as the idea gets to an actionable output, they're able to use and leverage to make your life easier and provide value. I feel like that's the direction everyone's kind of converging into at once. So,
yeah, I agree with you on that one. Actually, you know, in particular, I've heard a few people talk about this recently, so I'm curious what you think. Do you think that AI should be treated like its own customer? Do you think that the agents themselves should be treated like customers?
Interesting. That's a really good question.
Because I'm seeing kind of like messaging around this from others. I'm seeing, you know, Stripe just put out a digital wallet for agents. So, you know, there's companies out there that are starting to make resources available to agents. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that.
That is very interesting. I feel like the biggest scares that when I talk to engineering leaders, they're worried about an agent dropping a database table or agents making a purchase with someone's card that they did not want to, because one of the use cases I've seen is like the travel, flight, hotel, car stay booking flow, where it sounds good on paper, but if anything goes wrong, you're like, okay, how do I terminate this? How do I get a refund?
Yeah.
How do I switch this out? So it is a little bit of playing with fire, but it is very interesting because that is going to give agents that much more power when they do have a resource to go get their own API tokens, to subscribe to a service, to then add in more tools to their tool belt in real time to tackle problems that they're working on. So that seems like it could definitely be something in the future.
That's some place that this could potentially go in, and like you are trying to advocate for those agents to have access to certain tools or build tools specifically for them, depending on, because I know right now we're all building like skills and MCP and you know, trying to make sure that the agents have what they need as well as they have the context that they need, right? Do y'all use skills a lot in your tool?
Yeah, definitely. We found that obviously MCP was the wave for a while. It was like so hot, everyone was using it.
Yeah.
And we realized that skills help you lazy load, so you're not gumming up the context window with a whole MCP and all of the endpoints and all the things it could do. And with skills, we're able to both have the agents write their own skills and each other's skills to help them improve from the learnings they're getting from these long-running sessions on the cloud. And skills have definitely helped with that bottleneck of how do we keep the context window manageable. So we're seeing a lot of movement that way.
Do you think we'll move away from skills in the near future?
That's a good question.
Because we came in and I see a lot of skills getting created, but I'm also wondering, will we start to see an optimization there as well?
Yeah, so that is a good question because it's so tricky to both balance how bespoke you need something to be based on a very unique agent or a unique use case versus obviously I loved looking into all the different skill marketplaces where you could say, oh, someone made a really great skill. It's got good reviews. It works well.
Yeah.
I'll click, import that. So there will be some level of that, of the tools that are in the tool belt for an agent, of course, but maybe it has a different name or maybe it has a new form of skills and APIs and MCPs kind of all mixed together in some way, but we'll see.
And I'm also curious too if, and is this, I assume this is functionality y'all all are able to provide, but I know there's a lot of side tools for this. Voice coding is something I'm seeing more and more of. And, I'm curious, are you seeing that also coming in from the enterprise?
That's interesting. I feel like less so from the enterprise. I've definitely seen it in not like the influencer space, but in a lot of the like people that are putting out content. I've seen them use the voice to code and it looks really cool. I definitely want to spin it up myself, but I feel like that is kind of going to be the next phase of like, let me get on a phone call with my agent, tell them what I need to do or what happened or how to work on this. And it's only getting better and better as the fidelity improves and the auto recording to text translation improves. But like I'll still see funny things on Gong calls where it's the complete wrong word. And I was like, okay, I don't know if I can trust the agent to make sure it can translate as much as I want it to.
So one thing that's coming to my mind, especially when it has to do with any kind of enterprise tool service, how do y'all think about security?
That's a great question. That's been very top of mind for us at Augment for a nice long time. We were, I believe, one of the first players in the AI space to get SOC 2 compliant and ISO 42001 compliant. So it's been very critical for us because when enterprise companies are talking to us and they're like, okay, you're going to index our code base, what does that mean? Are you stealing our repo? Are you cloning it? Is this going to be in transit in traffic? And we've gone to the ends of the earth to make sure that we are as security compliant, have the top-notch penetration testing continually, making sure that the output of the context engine, the semantic mapping of the code base, it is encoded on our back end, and we use, I'm trying to think of the right word for it. Obviously, many layers of encryption, but we have to match the user's request to make sure that they have the repo, the code repo in their possession to make sure that they're able to use us and no one's using the wrong code base to answer their questions. So we haven't seen any problems with that, and it's been smooth sailing.
And that's important. Do you feel like there's certain things in particular people have to do to make sure that they're secure when they're doing any kind of development, especially if it's trying to prevent, like installing any of these packages that might be compromised, packages that are well established, well known, but we've heard of some recent situations where there's been packages that have had compromise, that have had
NPM,
there's been some issues around this. So like, do y'all have anything that you try to do or recommend to your users to help them drive more hygiene in their security practices?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like using an agent for that, as well as having a fact checker agent to run against a security agent, is always going to be the best front line to really make it that much easier for your security team to have a better understanding of what vulnerabilities could be coming, where things could be. But obviously it's impossible to get 100%. You can get to the 99 and get into the decimals and try to get close. But I'd say for our users, like obviously Augment, you really don't have to think about the security because we handle that all for you out of the box. So it really just depends. Obviously, you always have to be careful and make sure you hide those keys and keep everything off of public repos and don't vibe code too hard.
Something like that, yeah. Try not to, but at the same time, and do sandboxing too.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any opinions about AGI and what AGI is?
That's a really good
whether
question.
We've achieved it.
That's a great question. I can't say that we've achieved it from what I've seen, but I have been teasing around with our team about how our long-running cloud agents, with their ability to take away success and failures, put that into our virtual file system, and apply those learnings to improve over time as they have continual 24/7, 365 uptime, is kind of getting creepily close to AGI in terms of the agents healing strengthening, growing, evolving over time.
Yeah.
Instead of having a human, okay, I'll need to change the system prompt or add more skills. We're seeing, hopefully in an exciting way, an AGI-esque form of cloud agents coming out soon with our product.
Yeah, well, have you had a chance to play with any of the different types of agents that are, left to run on their own outside of the ones that you have at work?
Outside of work, I need to do a bit more competitive research. We have
Not
a
yet.
dev enablement guy working on that, but
That's fair. Actually, and also at work too, what kind of tools do you use that are AI tools for the work that you do?
definitely a lot of dog feeding. I feel like that's what we've been doing. I got to work on an exciting project for, so we call the agents, the template is for them as an expert. I got to build out an expert factory that just makes it that much easier for new users to onboard instead of someone going and staring at a blank canvas and saying, okay, how do I start working on this? So getting to work with that, as well as a Slack to PR agent that we use, which I absolutely love because I'm a lot more customer facing. I'm talking with people all the time, all over the industry. And anytime I'm getting feedback, I'm able to get that not just to the engineers, but to our coding agents to go fix some UI issue on our website or compile the feedback and make it much easier for the engineers to get into PRs and get into production. So
Nice.
I've been liking Augment both to sell and to use as well on my own.
Do you find any enterprises that are still not fully on board with leveraging these types of tools and that you think that they need to find, they need to start to adopt faster than they have been?
Oh, totally. We find people at all stages of the AI adoption lifecycle. Some people are still copy pasting their code into Claude in a web browser. Some people are using a single agent in their IDE. And some people are starting to do what we're doing, which is the multi-agent orchestration, but they're finding it a bit more trickier to do on their own as opposed to buying our product. So we are able to meet people really wherever they are, but we see, all over the place, really large, old Fortune 500 companies that are slow, but they're starting to kind of notice, oh, if my competitor's doing this and they're able to get this much more output and they're bringing this many tokens, what does that mean extrapolated over time? Where is my competitive advantage going to be if they're building better features, less paper cuts, less friction for their users, and getting better value to their customers?
Right. Well, and is there one that you would have been, not a specific company, because, I know we don't want to offend anybody, but is there like an industry in particular that you were more surprised at? Like, I know banking can sometimes be a little bit slower to adopt tools, but I've definitely been hearing that they're very much leaning in where they can try to find a way to ramp. A lot of companies and industries seem to be seeing the writing on the wall and trying to lean into it. Any ones that might be surprising you that are maybe not adapting as quickly as you would have thought they would be for industry-wise?
Oh, totally. I would say, obviously, the ones that have the most mission-critical software where they literally cannot have any downtime. Like, I would think of airlines and medical health and the government. And really, as you were saying as well, with banking, we recently published a blog article on augmentcode.com about using our long-running cloud agents to go into an old COBOL repository.
Okay, tell me more.
And completely convert it over to Rust.
Wow.
And it wasn't a huge repository, but it was just the tip of the iceberg of, okay, how many humans know how to do that? Are context engines able to understand a very foreign language to most engineers, break it down, both give you, as you can prompt it, information on what's doing what and why and how it's architected, as well as then go ahead and migrate it for you, writing much more performant code.
I mean, was this a pretty straight shot when it did the conversion to Rust? Because that's like Cobalt to Rust is interesting. And also, I'm curious, was there some rough patches? Was there some learnings from that experience?
Oh, 100%. This was like a very cutting edge, bleeding edge type of, can we get this to work? And it definitely needed a bit more prompts, a bit more human coaxing. But like I was saying before, it's going to learn from all of that with the virtual file system and get better as it does it more and more.
Although, how many more Cobalt repositories? I guess maybe there might be a lot out there. I know we were looking for a bunch of them, a bunch of engineers that had that expertise not that long ago. So but that's interesting. Oh, and maybe the government. Yeah,
public repos. I think we had an IBM one. It was a really small little test demo. So it was fun.
Oh, I'm curious. Just as a side note, do you have a language that you prefer to code in?
I am later to the game, so I do have to go with much higher level languages. I'm a Python and JavaScript boy myself, just from early web development. learnings.
Python's sort of the popular language when it comes to AI, so it makes sense to also be leaning in there for that alone.
Yeah, the data leveraging tools, yeah.
Do you have one that you want to learn?
I was learning Golang. My cousin started to teach me that, and I really liked it. Something about the just simplicity and the power with such a low-level language to do that, and like getting into the more memory allocation side of things on the back end was really fun. So I have to bust that open and get
Python?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like that would be a good one to play around, or well, to go into Go
Golang,
and
yeah.
to Golang. That sounds like that would be one that would be fun to test. And I want to try out Rust at some point. But anyway, is there anything you want to learn about in the AI space that you haven't learned lately, whether it's here or somewhere else?
Ooh, that is a good question. I feel like so much of my learnings have been on our specific competitors to understand who else is doing the multi-agent orchestration. I feel like, what was it? When someone came by our booth and was talking to me about a new company that was blowing up, that was doing interesting work in terms of making models cheaper and faster.
Okay.
So I feel like getting into the neural network learning side of things of like, okay, where are people able to make big gap improvements?
Token optimization seems to be a top of mind concept that's going on right now, but I understand what you're saying. Like models that are smaller can run faster, can still be just as effective, and what they can run on is also an interesting topic that's going on right now. I assume that's also top of mind for y'all in terms of like how to make sure that what you're building is performant. And you're building off of existing frontier models. Is that right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So, I mean, I'd say from that standpoint, like, well, we already talked about where I think AI is going in relation to being a position of a customer, but the ways in which we engage with it are going to continue to keep shifting because people are trying to find ways to optimize there. Is there any other things that like are coming up for y'all with what you're developing that you are able to share, but you can't, maybe you talked about Cosmos.
Yeah, that's definitely the biggest thing. And then the other part we have, which kind of feeds into exactly what you're bringing up about being model agnostic and really getting the best output based on the use case, is we have a model router called Prism, where it's able to reduce cost and get as good, if not better, outputs by deeply understanding your code base and what the prompt is. So it can really say, okay, we need a faster small model, we'll spin up Haiku. Okay, we need something big and heavy lifting, we'll use Opus 4.7 for like a major giant ticket for a big overhaul of an API endpoint or something like that. So between the routing and the multi-agent orchestration, all combined with the context engine, is just this little triangle of really exciting value that we're pushing. So,
and then on a slightly different but similar note, I'm curious, like, what was the customer that adopted y'all that sort of felt like it was the turning point that really sort of helped y'all kind of land and expand?
Oh, great question. I would say the best use case story is Adobe.
Okay.
They've been around for a very long time, and they have a very big code base. And they told us none of the tools are able to understand how big and complex our code base is when we need to make a change that touches on multiple surface areas inside the code base. Augment was the only one that was able to give them the context via the context engine to let the LLMs help them work and make improvements. And seeing that at that scale with both modern and legacy parts of the code base all working together for a major enterprise player was such a light bulb moment of, wow, we are doing something that no one else can do. This is really powerful.
Nice. Do you, with that being said, like what specifically helped others start to see the value there? Was that a use case you were able to share out publicly and then others could see that had value accordingly?
Yeah, exactly. And then our YouTube channel as well, we have a bunch of customer success stories where you get to interview the engineers and they get to talk about how hard it was trying to shepherd the agents and give the agents the right context prior to us and how much more velocity and quality of output.
And was there any kind of challenges from Adobe that was like a learning point for you that made y'all improve the next time around when you were expanding, you were sharing it with other customers?
Oh, totally. There definitely were lots of learnings and it was a definitely lengthy process. And
anything particular that jumps out to you?
I don't know how much I can talk about.
I respect that, but
good question.
Based on the use cases, if there was anything that y'all had shared publicly that you learned and were like, oh, we should do this now, and now you do that.
Oh, totally. A lot of it was like improving the context engine and how that really runs, and that was the biggest stress test up to that moment because we've used it on private repos and really large other mono repos, but that was the best way to really see, okay, what happens when
see
the
where it
rubber meets the
goes.
road.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate getting a chance to chat with you, Jack. Thank you for being here. Any last things that you had on your mind that you wanted to share about Augment Code, where AI is going, durability?
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me as well. And I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, great.
Thank you.